Tell me how you're still making money while you're paying these loans that are on double-digit interest rates.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think I hear that a lot from like early investors to say, hey, I got to pay 12% or even, hard money, you might pay 14%, right? And it's like, that's crazy. But what I learned early on is like, don't count other people's money, right? If I can borrow money from you and that then allows me to then go and make, on average, we're making $30,000 or $40,000 profit. So after paying you, right? So I can go and pay you on average, we're paying a lender somewhere between 8 and 12K maybe, or 8 and 14K, depending on the project and the amount of money we need and interest, right? And after I've paid you as the lender, I've paid all my closing costs, I'm still making $30,000 or $40,000. I mean, that's huge, right? And so I'm not worried about, am I strategically thinking about my funding sources and how I can get more competitive interest rates and expanding my private lender network? For sure. I think about that every day, but I'm not worried about, I've got to pay you 10, 12% because I know at the end of the day, I'm still making money. I need to respect your money because you need to make money too.
Right. You said it really well. I feel like it's often the newer investors who really freak out about that, let's say. And I get it because there's a little bit more of a scarcity mindset when you're new to it. Everything's a little scarier as well. But once you get into it for a little bit, you realize like, hey, it's a win-win. They're enabling you to do more deals so you can make more money, right? Because you can scale more than you could if you were only using your own funding.
Right. Yeah, 100%. It's the difference between, do you want to make some money or do you want to make no money? Right. And if my option is to pay a lender an interest rate and maybe some points to make some money versus I don't do the deal because I don't have money, then I'm going to choose to do the deal, assuming that, I can make a comfortable and conservative, we take a conservative approach. So assuming I can make a comfortable profit and I'm going to do the deal.
Exactly. So as we wrap up here, I'd like to focus a little more on this land home development. You've done a good example of it. What sort of investor is land home development a good fit for?
That's a great question. My opinion is it's good for everybody. But if we're going to niche down and think about who we have an education program, we work with lots of different types of people. I'll just list some of the people that I've seen to be really successful. One is the wholesaler. So you're a wholesaler, you're making good money, but maybe you want to go to the next level in real estate. This is a great opportunity. You can find good deals, so you know how to find good deals. Your next step is, how do I learn something else in real estate to add additional value, make more money, right? The second person maybe is a land flipper. We have a decent amount of land flippers. So they've been doing land flipping, have a lot of deal flow, know how to find good deals on land, but maybe there's some land that you haven't been able to sell that you didn't buy at a big enough discount in order to wholesale it, but it's a big enough discount where you can still be profitable in land home deals. So that's maybe another example. And then the last example I'll leave you with is, I think about, there's a couple guys that I work with and they're really good friends of mine now. And I just love them. They're in their 60s and they both had jobs, but then they were kind of semi-retired, but they didn't have quite enough built up for retirement. And they wanted just a little bit of extra retirement. And so they started doing land home deals and have been extremely successful in a different way than I have in terms of how they find deals and such, which is interesting to see. But they've been really successful and they're now doing 2 deals a month in their so-called retirement in order to build up their retirement. So much so that like their best friends, one lives in Chicago, one lives in South Carolina. And the guy that lives in Chicago is now moving to South Carolina with his family. His wife is able to quit her job and they're going to work together closely in South Carolina, which is really cool to see. So that's another example of like, hey, maybe you've got a W-2 or maybe you're older and you're thinking about retirement, but you want to stay busy. Probably a good thing to look at.
Love that. Those are some really great avatars or examples of who'd be great for. And is this something somebody can do in any state in the nation, or are there certain regions that are ideal?
So there are definitely places that are better than others for land home packages. The way I'd look at it is I'll go to Zillow, look at sold comps, and typically I want sold properties to be above 225 in order to be profitable. So that is a good area. Typically the Southeast is really good, Texas, but there's people that are doing it in California, people that are doing it in North. That being said, I know people there's a guy I know, he lives in Texas, but he's doing deals in Florida, right? Or there's a guy that lives in Boston and he's doing deals in Tennessee. So geography doesn't necessarily limit you in terms of, being able to do land home. But of course there's better places than others to actually execute.
And that's great to hear. you can do it in a totally different state, 100% remote.
That's right.
And then what are the typical requirements for entry, or what are some barriers to entry that people need to keep in mind?
Typical requirements or barriers to entry, really, for me, there's two things. One is finding good land deals. And that is really your first objective, is go find a good land deal. Don't worry about everything else. If you find a good land deal, call me, reach out to me, and I'll help you with the rest. But that's the very first step. The second step is, barrier to entry is funding. When we started several years ago, funding was really hard. It's gotten easier. It's still not the easiest, but there are a handful of companies that will fund these, or private lenders that will fund it. So that would be the next barrier to entry. But as you know, if you have a good deal, most of the time the funding will follow. And then from there, it's about operations. And operations is, you can follow a process to get that done.